Her moans were filthy, the kind that made a man lose his sanity, the kind that belonged in our bedroom, but were now echoing through an enemy's camp. I stood in the shadows, my fingers tightening around the trigger of my rifle. My blood pounded so hard in my ears that I almost didn't hear it at first. The sound of my wife, Ava Sterling, gasping, begging, whispering dirty little promises in a language I didn't recognize. Then I saw them, her body tangled in silk sheets, arching, surrendering, writhing beneath an enemy soldier. I had survived explosions. I had stared death in the eye and spat in its face. I had watched my brothers in arms fall beside me, their blood soaking the ground. But nothing had ever destroyed me like this. I should have stormed in, should have ended them both, but I was frozen, torn between rage and the gut-wrenching kind of betrayal that turns a man into something primal, something dangerous. Then she laughed, a soft, breathless, satisfied little laugh. And that was when I knew she wasn't a hostage. She wasn't here against her will. She had chosen this. And God help them both, because I was about to lose control. My name is Ronan Sterling, and I'm 32 years old, a decorated military officer, a man who has spent his life in the service of his country. I've killed, I've saved, I've walked through hell and returned. And until this moment, I thought I knew pain. Ava Sterling was my wife, the woman I worshipped, the woman I went to war for, the woman who had promised to wait for me, to love me, to be mine. And yet here she was, moaning for another man, a man who wore the uniform of the enemy I had sworn to destroy. I had come to this base on a classified mission. My unit intercepted intelligence that an American citizen was being held prisoner by enemy forces, and when I saw the name, her name, I had volunteered for the mission without hesitation. I had imagined her scared, locked away, tortured. I had pictured myself storming in, taking out her captors and carrying her back home like a soldier returning from battle with his queen in his arms. Instead, I found this, her body, a masterpiece I had memorized, pressed beneath another man, her fingernails digging into his back, her lips kissing words into his skin, her voice sweet and filthy, whispering things that once belonged to me. It wasn't just betrayal, it was war. I exhaled, slow and controlled, my pulse thrumming like a bomb about to detonate. I could hear the enemy soldier whispering to her in his guttural, foreign accent, could see the way she smiled up at him, seductive, playful, dripping with satisfaction. I had two options. One, I could storm in, put a bullet between his eyes, and drag her naked, shaking body out of this place. Two, I could play the long game, because killing them both would be too easy. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling. I wanted to ruin her the way she had ruined me. I wanted her to beg. I wanted her to cry. I wanted her to know down to her very bones that she had made the worst mistake of her life. And so I waited. I watched. I let her think she was safe. I let her think her betrayal was unseen. But in the darkness, I was already planning. Because I wasn't just going to take my revenge, I was going to make her enjoy it. The moment I stepped away from that doorway, from the sight of my wife tangled in another man's arms, something inside me snapped. I wasn't the same man anymore. The devoted husband, the soldier who fought for love, he was dead. Now, I was a predator. And she was my prey. Ava Sterling had no idea what was coming for her. I spent the next 3 days watching her, studying her. Like a mission behind enemy lines, I memorized her every move. When she left the tent, when she returned, when she slipped into the arms of that man, the one who had no idea his life was dangling by a thread. She wasn't a prisoner. She was living here, laughing, drinking, spreading her legs for the very people who would have put a bullet in my skull without hesitation, and she thought she had won. I let her think that, because nothing is sweeter than the taste of betrayal right before it's fed back to you. On the fourth night, I made my move. I waited until the camp had fallen into its usual lull. Soldiers drinking, gambling, celebrating victories won in the shadows. She had just finished another one of her little rendezvous with her lover, her hair still messy, her lips still swollen. Disgusting. She strolled through the tents, her silk robe slipping down her shoulder, her body moving too freely, too confidently. Like she wasn't supposed to be mine. She didn't see me. Not until she was too close. I struck like a phantom. One strong arm around her waist, the other clamping over her mouth. Her muffled scream was swallowed by the night as I dragged her backward into the darkness of the abandoned barracks. I slammed her against the wall, my fingers locking around her throat, hard enough to make her gasp, soft enough to let her feel every inch of my control. Her eyes went wide. That perfect storm of fear, shock, and something else. Desire. She recognized me in an instant. "Ronan," she choked out, breathless, stunned, ruined. I leaned in, my lips brushing her ear, my voice a low growl. "Miss me, sweetheart?" Her body shuddered against mine. She opened her mouth, maybe to explain, maybe to lie. But I didn't let her. I crushed my lips against hers, a kiss of fire, of fury, of punishment. She moaned, that same filthy sound she had given him. But now it was mine. I pulled back, my grip tightening. "Don't you dare make a sound!" She nodded, wide-eyed, trembling. Good. I wanted her afraid. I wanted her burning. Because this was just the beginning. I could feel her pulse racing beneath my fingertips. Could see the way her chest rose and fell, her body betraying her. The way she had betrayed me. "I thought you were dead," she whispered, "liar." I chuckled, dark and low. "You thought I was dead? And that's your excuse for whoring yourself out to the enemy?" Her eyes flashed with something wild. Anger, guilt, desire. "It's not what you think." I silenced her with a rough fist in her hair, yanking her head back just enough for her to feel it. "Don't lie to me, Ava." My voice was lethal, dripping with warning. "You weren't taken, you weren't forced, you weren't tortured. You chose this." She swallowed hard, didn't speak. Good. Because I wasn't done yet. I dragged her to the bed, the very same one she had spread herself across for another man. I threw her down onto it, watching as she gasped, her legs still trembling from the force of my grip. I stood over her, my jaw tight, my body thrumming with a dangerous mix of emotions. Anger, lust, a hunger for revenge so deep it was intoxicating. She was going to pay for what she did to me, and I was going to make her enjoy every second of it. Her body trembled beneath me, her breath hitched, her pulse wild. She wasn't fighting me. She wasn't even screaming. Because deep down, she wanted this. She wanted to feel my anger, my possession, my revenge, and I was about to give it to her. I hovered over her, my body a rigid coil of fury and control. She lay sprawled on the bed, the same bed she had tainted with another man. The silk robe she wore had slipped from her shoulder, exposing the skin that had once belonged only to me. I ran a slow, deliberate finger along the curve of her jaw, watching the way her lips parted, the way she shivered at my touch. She was scared, but she was also something else entirely. "Tell me, Ava, I murmured, my voice dangerously low. Was he good? Her breath hitched. Did he touch you like I did? I leaned in, dragging my lips just barely over her ear. Did he make you beg? Did he make you scream? She clenched her jaw, refusing to answer. I wasn't having it. I grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at me. Answer me. Her lips trembled. Ronan, I said, answer me. Her eyes burned into mine, furious, desperate. I thought you were gone. I let out a sharp, cruel laugh. So you mourned me by spreading your legs for the first enemy that gave you a little attention. Her face twisted with guilt. But she didn't deny it. I felt it then. A dark satisfaction coiling in my chest. She regretted it. She knew she had made the biggest mistake of her life. And now? I was going to make damn sure she never forgot it. The door burst open before I could push her further. Ava gasped. I didn't even flinch. Because I had been waiting for this moment. Her lover stood in the doorway, his expression twisting from confusion to rage the second he saw us. His fists clenched. Get the hell away from her. I smirked, slow and lethal. Or what? He lunged. Bad move. I anticipated it, dodging easily, grabbing his arm and twisting it until I heard the sickening snap of bone. He let out a strangled yell, staggering back. Ava screamed. I didn't care. I shoved him against the wall, pinning him with the full weight of my fury. My knife was already in my hand, the tip pressing just beneath his throat. She was mine first, I whispered, just loud enough for Ava to hear. And now, she's mine again. His eyes widened in horror, in realization. He knew I was stronger, faster, deadlier. He knew he wasn't leaving this room alive. Ava's voice cut through the tension. Ronan, please. She scrambled off the bed, her silk robe barely covering her body as she threw herself between us. I tensed. Bad move, sweetheart. She turned to me, desperate, shaking. He didn't force me. I chose him. That's what did it. I grabbed her wrist, yanking her closer until our faces were inches apart. Say that again, I dared, my voice razor sharp, daring her to confirm the worst. She swallowed hard. I didn't let her finish. I crushed my lips against hers. Ava gasped into my mouth, her body melting against mine before she could stop herself. Her fingers curled into my jacket, nails digging in like she couldn't help it. She hated herself for it. I felt it, but I also felt the truth. She was still mine, and she knew it. The enemy soldier growled, "You son of a..." I grabbed him by the collar and slammed his head into the nearest table. He hit the ground hard, unmoving. Ava gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Ronan, what did you... I turned to her slowly, my chest rising and falling with deep, controlled breaths. She was shaking now. Good, because she hadn't seen anything yet. I reached down, grabbed her chin between my fingers, forcing her to meet my gaze. You belong to me, Ava. My voice was like a dark promise, a warning. Her breath hitched, her lips parted, and then the alarms blared. Shit. The entire enemy camp had just been alerted. We were out of time. I grabbed Ava's wrist, dragging her with me. She stumbled but followed because she had no other choice. She had made her bed. Now, she was going to lie in it. With me, and only me. No matter what it took. The alarms screamed through the enemy camp, flashing red lights casting Ava's terrified face in violent, pulsing shadows. Ronan, what did you do? She gasped, breathless, her robe slipping further down her shoulders, exposing more of the body that had once been only mine. I tightened my grip on her wrist, pulling her roughly against my chest. I just signed our death warrants. Unless you want to die in the arms of your enemy, you better start running, sweetheart. Her breath hitched. Fear flickered in her eyes. But beneath it, that same wild spark of lust and power that had drawn me to her in the first place. She thrived on danger. She was made for chaos, for passion, for destruction. And tonight, I was about to give her all of it. Soldiers were closing in. I could hear them shouting, boots thundering against the dirt, weapons being cocked. I pulled Ava behind me, my free hand gripping my rifle. No way in hell were they taking me alive. Ava stumbled as I dragged her into a darkened alley between the barracks. "Ronan, where are we going?" she panted. I didn't answer, because truth was, I wasn't sure myself. All I knew was I wasn't leaving this camp without getting exactly what I came for, and that meant her. Completely. Body, mind, and soul. We reached a supply room at the far end of the base. I kicked the door open and shoved her inside. She turned to me, breathless, her robe hanging dangerously off her shoulders. "You're insane." I grinned. "And you're still mine." Her lips parted. I saw the war raging inside her, the guilt, the shame, the undeniable need. She knew what she had done, and she knew she couldn't undo it, but that didn't stop the way her body reacted to mine. I stepped closer, my chest rising and falling with adrenaline. I let my fingers trail over her bare shoulder, slow, possessive. She shuddered. I leaned in, dragging my lips just barely over her ear. "Tell me, Ava, when you were with him, did you think of me?" She gasped, her hands clutching at my jacket. "Ronan!" I pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, the desperation, the hunger, the pure, unfiltered regret. I ran a thumb along her jaw, smirking. "You did, didn't you?" She didn't answer, didn't have to, because I already knew she had spent those nights with him trying to forget me. And failing, because there was no forgetting me. The moment was cut short by a gunshot. The door burst open. 3 enemy soldiers stormed inside. I moved before they could react. I grabbed Ava and flipped the table over, shoving her down behind it. "Stay down," I growled. Then I turned to finish what I had started. I was a machine. 1. Shot to the head. First enemy down. 2. Spin, grab the second by the throat, slam him against the wall, knife through his rib cage. 3. Last one tried to shoot. I yanked Ava's robe and threw it over his face, blinding him just long enough to pull the trigger. The bullet pierced his skull. He hit the ground with a heavy thud. Silence. Heavy breathing. Ava stared at me, stunned, her chest rising and falling with something dangerous. I walked over, crouched in front of her, dragged my fingers through her hair. "Still think I'm insane?" I murmured. She swallowed hard. Then she did the unthinkable. She kissed me hard, desperate, like she had been waiting for this moment since the second she betrayed me. I grabbed her waist, pulled her closer, slamming her against the wall. She moaned against my lips, pure, sweet surrender. But then, more gunshots outside. I pulled away, panting, furious, intoxicated. "Time's up, sweetheart. We need to move." She nodded, breathless, eyes blown wide with adrenaline, but I saw it. The shift, something had changed. I wasn't dragging her away anymore. She was following me, willingly, because now she was mine again. And I was about to burn this whole damn place to the ground to prove it. We ran, Gunfire exploded around us. Enemy soldiers shouted in their native tongue, the entire camp in chaos. But I didn't stop. We dodged through the maze of tents, shadows flickering, bullets whizzing past. Ava gasped, clutching my arm. "Ronan, how do we get out?" I pulled her to a nearby jeep. Hot-wired it in seconds. She climbed in beside me. One last glance at the burning camp, and then we were gone. Hours later, we stopped at a safe house deep in the mountains. The moment we were inside, she turned to me. "Ronan." Her voice was soft, hesitant, desperate. I turned, eyes locking onto hers. Waiting. She took a shaky breath. "I messed up," she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. "You think?" She swallowed hard. She was trembling, not with fear, with realization. She knew. She had ruined us. But now? Now she wanted me to fix it. I took slow, deliberate steps toward her. She backed up until she hit the wall, her breath coming in short, rapid bursts. I ran my fingers slowly down her arm. "Do you even know what you've done to me, Ava?" I murmured. Her lips parted, eyes fluttering closed. "Ronan." I let my lips brush against her jaw, just barely. Teasing, torturing, she gasped. I smirked. "You're mine, and now you're going to spend every single night proving it." Her breath hitched. I saw the surrender in her eyes. And just like that, it was over. The next morning, she woke up alone. On the nightstand, a note, scrawled in my handwriting. "You broke me first. Now, you get to live with it. Goodbye, sweetheart." She gasped, shoving the sheets back, searching for me. But I was gone, because revenge isn't just about taking back what was yours. Sometimes it's about walking away and making sure they never forget what they lost forever.